It's time to tackle one of those classes with way too many subclasses. We'll start with the Cleric. Welcome to the Attic Dungeon. My name is Sam, and whether you want to be a Cleric, Wizard, or just hot stuff, I'm here to help you with everything. Yes, we're going to have a look at the first three Cleric subclasses. Now beforehand, if I seem to be lacking some of my regular enthusiasm, that's because I'm suffering from laryngitis, so I'm trying to save my voice a bit while still uploading a video this week. I realized two things when I was prepping my subclass videos a while ago. One, I was avoiding classes that had subclasses with separate spell lists because so much more effort talking about those. Two, I was avoiding classes with way too many subclasses. So I decided to take the class that had both of these and started talking about that one to kind of get it off the list and stop avoiding all of those things. So here we are at the Cleric with its whopping 14 subclasses, of which each has a separate added spell list. What do you need to know about Cleric subclasses in general? You get them at level 2. You get spells from your subclass up to 9th level Cleric level. So that means up to 5th level of spell level, you will get some 2 spells at each spell level. That makes sense? Yeah, sure. Furthermore, you will always get a Channel Divinity option. So standard, you have Turn Undead as a Cleric, but your subclass will also give you an extra Channel Divinity option. And then at 6th, 8th and 17th level, you will get some more Cleric subclass stuff. The 8th level one is pretty much the same for all Clerics though. Either it's an increase to your cantrips by allowing you to add your Wisdom modifier, or it's a melee buff allowing you to add 1d8 on an attack, or 2d8 if you pass a certain level, which I forgot. Or if you play with Tashas, you can kind of choose between those each turn, which is also fun. But I think the Tashas one doesn't give you the upgrade. No, exactly. So if you pick the Tashas one, you always add a d8 to weapon attacks or cantrip attacks, which for the cantrip one, that's kind of the same. Whether you roll a d8 extra or add +5 if your wisdom is 20, that's roughly the same. But the melee one loses out at high levels because you don't gain the second d8, which you would gain at level 14. There we are. So if you want to play a melee Cleric past level 14, take the original melee buff from your subclass and not the Tasha's buff. There we are. Important to know, your bonus spells are of the sort that are always prepared and available to you. So it's not like Warlocks, who also gain bonus spells but still have to choose spells when they level up, and the wider selection is just those subclass spells. No, Cleric subclass spells, just like Artificer spells for example, are always there for you, which is amazing by the way, especially if your subclass spells come from widely different spell lists. They just open up your possibilities. So in general, I'll prefer subclasses that have spell lists that don't contain a lot of Cleric spells. There are a few exceptions that we will cover in later videos, but for now we'll start in alphabetic order. That means we get right down to it with the Arcana Domain. The Arcana Domain is basically the Cleric that studies the mysterious powers of the arcane. If a Cleric and a Wizard had love child, it would be the Arcana Cleric. There you are. For some reason, part of the Arcana Domain spells remind me of a Cleric who wants to build a dungeon for some reason, because there's Leomund's secret chest, a teleportation circle for easy getting in and out, a magic circle to keep people out, but you also get magic weapon, Dispel Magic, Nistel's Magic Aura, which is a weird spell that allows you to portray false information about an object. Again, build your own dungeon stuff. And then Detect Magic, Magic Missile. It's the good news is a lot of these don't appear on the Cleric list, but they're very niche spells in my personal opinion. You obviously, for detect magic there's always a use, same for dispel magic. But a lot of these, like Leomund's secret chest, is very niche. And by the way, dispel magic is already on the cleric spell list anyway, so well, here I can say, if the spell on your subclass spell list is a good cleric spell, like one of those I feel forced to have this spell, then it's very okay for it to be in your subclass spell list, because then you always have it prepared and the party won't be looking at you, what do you mean you don't have dispel magic prepared? And you can use your spell prep slots, so to speak, to prepare other spells that you actually want to prepare instead of those that the party expects you to prepare. So if the cleric spells on your bonus spell list are good cleric spells, it's okay. You also get Arcane Initiate, which gives you proficiency in the Arcana skill, and you get 2 wizard cantrips as well. That's pretty cool because the wizard has a wide list of cantrips, some of which cover utility that you as a cleric do not. You could take like Booming Blade or Green Flame Blade. You could take Mage Hand. A Minor Illusion is also not on the cleric list, I think. There's a lot of options here. So this is actually a good feature to broaden your Swiss Army knife style that you already have as a cleric. While the cleric has a relative niche spell list, he does cover a lot of different areas, just not a lot of damage in general. But it's really nice to have extra cantrips for utility. Your Channel Divinity is a bit weird. Arcane Abjuration, it's basically turn undead, but then for Celestials, Fae, and something else that I forgot. Elementals and Fiends. So it basically works the same. You turn them for 1 minute. If they fail the save at higher levels, you will banish certain lower levels of these creature types according to the banishment spells, but without concentration, which is a cool benefit. But obviously if they're banished, you can't interact with them. It is not the best Channel Divinity out there. There's worse, but it's very niche. If you're in a campaign in the Fey world, this is going to be great fun, but it's niche. Chances are you won't be using it 75% of your campaign. At level 6 you gain what I think is their best feature, and it's called Spellbreaker. If you restore hit points to a creature, you can also end the spell that is the same level as the healing spell you used or lower. And that's pretty cool, because that means that instead of casting Dispel Magic, which you have anyway, you could dispel a level 3, like Bestow Curse, which is what, a level 2 or 3 spell with Healing Word cast at the appropriate level. You add some hit points to the person and you remove a not so good spell with the same spell slot, and that's actually very efficient. So good on them. It's niche because obviously they have to be affected by a spell and not a magic like effect. For example, if some ice monster slaps you in the face and that causes you to be slowed, that is not a spell, that's just a magic like effect, and that will not be ended by this feature. But this saves you casts of Lesser Restoration, Dispel Magic. How funny, because you always have that one. It's a good feature, to be honest, and gives you extra incentive to heal. Of course, the target has to be at less than full hit points to receive the benefits, because you have to restore hit points. So don't forget, if they're full health, punch them so they lose 1 health, and then heal them up to remove the magic spell. Yeah, there you are. At level 8, as I said, potent spellcasting, in this case they get wisdom to their cantrips if you want. And at level 17, actually a really good feature, but it's all the way up at level 17, so if you ever play a cleric at this high level, this is going to make you into even more of a Swiss Army knife. It's Arcane Mastery. You get to pick a 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th level wizard spell and add them to your domain spells. Ergo, they are always prepared. You could be a cleric with always wish prepared, for example, which is insane. You have a crazy spell versatility, It's too bad you don't get any features like this at lower level. It might be a bit too much like Magical Secrets otherwise, even though you're limited to one spell list. But then you have the Divine Soul Sorcerer that can always take cleric spells. You can have a cleric that dabbles in wizard spells a bit more, and it would make the subclass better. But at high levels, this is going to open up your options. Together with those extra cantrips you've been having, you really do have a very versatile spell list. So, how do I rate this subclass? It's, I think, among the worst of the cleric classes because the channel divinity is trash. The spellist is super niche. As I said, if you want to run your own dungeon, this is going to help you, but most of those spells are not going to be used at all, and that's too bad, really. Spellbreaker is good, Arcane Mastery is good, but that's so deep down that I can't take that into account, actually. So sadly, Arcana Domain is... I mean, you're going to have fun playing a wizard cleric, but there's better classes out there, subclasses out there even. That brings us to the second one, which is going to be the Death Domain. So you're just a cleric specializing in death. You're a cleric wanting to be a more specific type of wizard, namely a necromancer, which shows in your spell list. There's a lot of necromantic spells in there, including Animate Dead, which is funny because you'll get Animate Dead and its benefits sooner than a necromantic wizard would get it. And I'll explain that when I do the wizard subclasses. So, well, there's some spells on there that you can also find on the cleric list, of course. But there's nice stuff like I like having Death Ward prepared all the time. Sure, that's okay. Blight does decent damage. Ray of Sickness is a waste of a spell slot. Blindness, Deafness you already have on the cleric spell, and it's not one of those must-have cleric spells for me, so it's to have it on a subclass list. Ray of Enfeeblement, Anti-Life Shell and Cloudkill are fun. It's not the best spell list at all to me. Cool Beans, you get proficiency with martial weapons as a death cleric, and you can learn any one necromancy cantrip no matter the spell list. So you can just, I don't know, Google necromancy cantrips and pick whatever one you want, and that's cool. I think this is one of the few features that allows you to pick a spell from a school across all classes, so that gives you some flexibility. Obviously you already have one of the better cantrips, being Toll the Dead is already on the cleric list, but was it Chill Grasp, the one that prevents healing, is not on the cleric list, I think, and could be a nice follow-up here. Your channel, oh no, you've got one more thing along with that cantrip thing. If you cast a necromancer cantrip that normally targets one creature, you can target two if they're next to each other. This is actually quite potent. I mean, Toll the Dead being the highest damage dealing cantrip in the game, if the creature is already damaged, being able to target two creatures that are next to each other is a solid move. This is by no means a bad feature, even though necromancy cantrips that will greatly benefit from this are limited, but they exist. So, good feature. I will never say no to double blasting Toll the Dead. Woof. Channel Divinity is called Touch of Death and basically allows you to, when you hit with a melee attack, to boost your damage output by quite a bit, namely by 5 plus twice your cleric level. That is pretty cool. Channel Divinity has a limited amount of uses, of course. Resets on a short rest, and since Tasha's, not unimportant, since Tasha's clerics can use Channel Divinity to restore spell slots, and I think that has made a lot of the Channel Divinities worse, like the one from the Arcana one. Oh, I can turn away some fake creatures or restore a spell slot. Here, I can smack someone at level 2, let's say for 9 damage extra, or I can restore a spell slot, which will quite possibly do more than 9 damage, AoE, whatever. If you're doing Thunder Wave, or at one level higher, you got Shatter maybe. So this can be cool. I mean, at highest level, this is a big slap, right? A level 20 cleric adding 45 damage to the smack is pretty good. I like the idea here, but I don't know if it's what I want to waste my channel divinities on, if I can restore certain amount of spell slots. Still, in a clutch, slapping really well with the weapon always works, so go for it. 6, I think, is a very important feature in Escapable Destruction. Your necromantic spells will ignore necromantic resistance, which is very important. It's a relatively common resistance type, I think. It's not like fire resistance, but still, if it's an undead, they tend to have like poison resistance, necromantic resistance. So being able to ignore that is really good. It allows your class to function. There you go. That's always nice to have. It's comparable to, let's say, the monk acquiring magic fists at level 6 as well. The druids of the moon acquiring magic claws somewhere on those levels as well. It's on that level basically. So yeah, that's all the feature does, but I think it's pretty important to have, because otherwise in the wrong campaign your necromantic damage would become half useless. Of course, if you're playing a campaign with very little necromantic resistance, this is a useless feature. So it would have been nice if they added something on there. 8, same business, they get a melee buff, so 1 or 2 d8s, it's level 8. And then the 17 feature, Improved Reaper, sounds really cool, but I'm having trouble finding a lot of spells that really benefit from it. So Improved Reaper is the name of the feature, and it means that all of your necromantic spells from level 1 to 5 that target one creature can now target 2 creatures as long as they're standing next to each other, kind of like your cantrips. If the spell consumes its components, it still needs components for both the targets. So you have some necromantic spells on the cleric list, but none of them really scream copy me, except maybe, or is that also in the list of this specific? No, I think that's a cleric spell, like a life transference, where you take a bunch of dice as damage and you transfer twice as much to your target, and the damage can't be prevented. So if you can do that but onto 2 targets, you would heal for 4 times the amount that you've sacrificed, and that is a pretty decent use of this feature. Obviously, Animate Dead is also easy to copy. Then you can animate 2 corpses next to them. Blight also does 1 target, I think. Let me check. Yeah, so you can carve Blight on 2 targets. The cool thing about this feature is that a lot of spells that are going out of fashion because their damage is too low, because they're lower spell levels, gain relevance again, because suddenly they're potentially dealing double the amount of damage and or debuffing double the amount of creatures. Again, since the Cleric capstone arrives so very late in the game, there's other classes that gain their subclass capstone at 14, 15, right? These guys have to wait until 17. So it's pretty good, and it makes your lower level spells, including those from your domain, more relevant again. So that's cool. It's a cool twist, but in combat it requires positioning, of course, to be ever relevant. And then our last domain for today is going to be one of the better domains, because, oh yes, before we do that, I have to rank the death domain. It's another one for me. The forced melee efficiency is not supported enough for me, because they give you cantrip efficiency and necromantic spell efficiency, and then they try to mix that up with this forced melee efficiency. Like, we kind of wanted to make you a death knight, but we tried to go too many ways at once kind of vibe is what I'm getting here. Because this could be, I mean, if give it heavy armor and it looks like a death knight, it has a few curses, can summon a few zombies or skeletons, has decent weapon attack. So this is like a bad death knight. Is it a horrible subclass? No, but it's not good in my opinion. So to compensate for that, because apparently I had to start with 2 mediocre or bad subclasses, we're going to one of the what is perceived as an excellent cleric subclass, the Forge domain. So obviously you're a cleric who works at a forge, you'll be meeting a lot of fire. I mean, look at dwarf in a forge with a hammer and heavy armor. Up there you go, that's your forge cleric. Why would you play another race? First off, let's have a look at the domain spells. They are excellent. Why? A lot of them, almost all of them, are not on the cleric list, and they are valuable spells. Heat metal, not on the cleric list, excellent spell. You get a smite spell, which is cool because you'll get some melee proficiency as well, and this can further complement that. Like, smite spells are situational but nice to have. Fabricate, wall of fire, animate objects. Hello, I love animate objects. It's not a cleric spell, but it is an excellent spell. It is a great summoning spell, and now your cleric has it, along with heavy armor proficiency. You also get that, and smith's tools, because you know, tools. You also gain the ability to imbue a weapon or a suit of armor with a +1 modifier. So you make a +1 suit of armor or a +1 weapon. You can choose which one each day, and this is really good in the beginning of the game. It might peter out a bit later on, depending on how many and what type of magic items the party gathers, but this is going to carry you a nice long while, to be honest. There's always going to be someone without magic armor in the early levels, like up to level 9 or 10 or whatever. A lot of things are really good about the Forge Cleric. Their channel divinity is not, it is trash. Artisan's Blessing allows you to create any item max worth 100 gold, provided you provide materials of the same value as what you're trying to create, and then you can transmute it kind of in what you need. There's cool options here, like you can copy something that you have. So if you have a key, you can copy the key. A statue that you want to steal, you can copy the statue, whatever. There's basically forgery options here, which is weird for the... Yeah, okay, Forge Cleric, I get it, but you're not a con man, but you have the one of the best con man, low level, easy to reset abilities there is. But compared to some of the channel divinities we'll be meeting later on, this is not good. But at least you can, if you find some random stuff of equal worth to a weapon, you can transmute it into a weapon, I suppose. It takes an hour to do the ritual. You can make tools, weapons, armor, so it's one of those weird, we've lost all our gears and I can at least try to make a suit of armor if I find some things of value here. There's things to be done with this on the creative level, of course, but it's really not the best one. At level 6, Soul of the Forge, you gain +1 armor class if you're wearing heavy armor, which you should always be, and you gain fire resistance. A niche resistance, of course it's only one type, but fire is one of the most encountered damage types. You know, fireball here, angry dragon over there, oh look, a pit with flaming spikes. It's a nice resistance to have, really. It's not bad. And +1 armor class, sign me up for that any time of the day. Level 8, usual, the Forge Clerics are going to get the melee variety of smack your bitch up melee buffs, but that makes sense. Together with your magic weapon, you have one attack that might deal a decent amount of damage. Clerics never get extra attacks, so it's always a bit forced when they get extra melee benefits. Anyway, at level 17 you gain a feature with an incredibly cool name, Saint of Forge and Fire. That could be the title that your character has once they have ascended to semi-godhood, but it also does stuff. You are now completely immune to fire damage, and while wearing heavy armor, non-magical physical damage, so bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, only does half damage to you because you gain resistance to those. So that's pretty cool. Again, level 17, why do we have to wait so long? But immunity to damage type. Good fun, have fun traveling in hell now, and only taking half damage from non-magical physical damage is good stuff. Even if quite a few creatures are going to have magical weapons here or whatever, I don't know, a dragon's claws are not magical if I'm not mistaken. They just hurt, and now they hurt less. There we are, ladies and gentlemen. My voice is telling me to stop, and that is the perfect moment because I've done 3 subclasses, which was exactly what I had planned to. I hope to see you all again in 2 weeks with more voice in the Attic Dungeon.